Hi everyone, Jacqueline here, creating my garden, and today we're going to clean up our miniature rose bed. You can see that it's full of color right now. This bed has done really well and is starting to nicely fill in. Of course, just when fall is starting to hit us. Just so you know, last night we did get frost here in our zone 3B. I did cover this bed up, and I did cover up my containers in the front and window boxes and that, and everything's okay today. Some of the plants that weren't covered up, it took a little bit of frost. About 4 or 5 a.m. it dropped to 0, and that's when they took a bit of a hit, but then the sun came up. So anyhow, I left these covered up until it hit about 5 or 6 degrees, and then I uncovered them and everything's good here. But anyhow, for today the plan is to plant this miniature rose. Now, for any of you that haven't seen my miniature rose videos, I love miniature roses, and I try to collect different colors. The only color I've been putting in this bed is reds. And the reason I'm putting reds in here is just because with the color combos I have going, with just pinks and purples and whites and stuff, I find that the red may not be a good fit. Otherwise, I use red in the garden, and I use it for the hummingbirds and the pollinators in particular, but the hot fuchsia pinks work well for that too. So anyhow, this is a miniature rose I pick up. I usually pick them up sometimes at garden centers, but usually I end up finding them at grocery stores and stuff. They are good for 4B, a zone 4 and up. So I'm a zone 3, which means I have to protect these guys for winter. But they, I find over the years, are very tough, as long as you do protect them and don't uncover them too soon. That is the key. So mulch them over really good. You can even mound up soil around the sides of them and cover them over till spring, and they will do this fine, and they will be actually much better. They'll be much taller. So this one, it looks like a peach one, right? Orangey peach, but actually as it blooms and ages, it turns into kind of a green and a white rose. You can see there's a lot of green in there in the flower, and it fades out to a green and white, which makes it unique, and I don't have that one in this bed. If we go through this bed before I begin, I have a lot of pinks. You can see these ones here. They're starting to fade out. I have a lot of oranges because, as you know, I love orange. Aren't they cute? This one's pretty short. I do have petunias in here, geraniums in here, and I have the pink salvias in here, and these are the ones that stay fairly short, so they're perfect with the miniature roses. And you can see everything's leaning toward the sun, and this is probably very bright for you. So you can see the pinks here and the yellows, which are really beautiful. And then this one here was a variegated. It was all different colors, and right now it's getting ready to bloom. There was some pink on it, but it had 3 different colors. It was pink, orange, and yellow. See, this one's got buds on it still, so they're still blooming. This is a lavender here, and I need to come in and deadhead it, and another pink, and over here, and these are the ones I planted out in spring and got frosted, and I managed to save them, move them back here, and they've been happy. You can see it's kind of an orangey, peachy yellow. So it's been very successful back here having them in this bed, and they've worked out well. So I'm going to plant that rose, and I'm going to put it right here, just offset. And I can see there's been stuff in the bed running around, messing stuff up. My lady's feet. And the lady is a swimmer, and the history of the swimmer was that my mom used to swim at an auditorium all the time with her lady friends. They always wore the flowered hats. And I used to always think they were so funny, all these women swimming around with all these flowered hats, some doing synchronized swimming, some not, but it was a big thing. Like, it was trendy to have these flowered swim hats on, swim caps. So anyhow, this reminded me of them, so I thought it was fun, so I put her in here, and I used to repaint her over the winter, and a lot of my gnomes I repaint and then put them back out in the spring, just for, because they're fun, right? And I like to have fun in the bed. So anyhow, first thing I want to do with this bed is I'm going to go through and I'm going to plant the rose first, just to get it in the ground. So let's get that done, and then I'm going to come through and I'm going to deadhead and clean this bed up, and I'm going to deadhead the roses. See in this bed how I've dug the hole down a bit, and I will pop it out of the pot and put it in. There's no real method to this. It's good to get a good depth on the roses, so that they're easier to mound over for the winter for protection. So I'm going to put it in now and you'll see the depth. So you can see that she's just probably a good 1/2 inch to 1 inch below the soil line, and then I'll mound the soil up around it, and that will do it, and press it in firmly around to prevent any air holes. And it looks really good there. I think it'll provide a nice contrast. So you can see now I've mounted the soil up good around the base. I'm just going to get in there and show you. You can see where the roots are and that. So she's covered really good, and it should be really happy there. And right now it's getting the west sun, so that should also make it happy. It's probably happy being outside the house. So here's the thing, you guys. If you buy some miniature roses and you want to plant them, if you're in a zone 4, I would still semi-protect them, just because they can be temperamental. And we do have periods of really cold where it might dip lower than what your climate allows. So always mound and protect your miniature roses, unless you're in like a 6 or 7 or something like that. Like 5, 6, 7, these are probably going to be okay. But 4s, I would still protect them just to be safe and make sure. Don't cut them down for the winter. Leave them full like they are, because you want to save as many of those nodules on the rose so that it can come back. The shoots can come back next year. And you will be cutting a little bit of dead off, so you'll get some branches that are a little dead on top, and you'll be cutting them down to where you find a new growth shoot. But that is okay, so don't cut them down to the ground. Leave them fully grown and wait till all the cold is gone and all the frost is gone, and then uncover them and give them a really good soaking. That's my recommendation for how to treat these roses, and any tender roses, hybrid teas, floribundas, all those. If you're growing any of those in a climate where it's colder and they need protection, don't uncover until that danger of frost is gone. But if it's dry, give them a good soaking too. That's very important. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and clean up this bed, and we'll deadhead everything as we go along here. You can see the geraniums are in need of some deadheading. So I've got a pail and I've got a couple sets of pruners here, and I'm just going to go through here and work in a circle and clean these up a bit. So you can see here's my pruners, and I don't use any particular brand of pruners, you guys. I pretty much buy what's on sale and use them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down to the leaf node and chop them off. Just like that. So simple. There's nothing special about it. And I'll pull a few weeds while I'm at it in here. This petunia is hiding the beauty of my plant here, so I'm just going to deadhead that back a bit. And you can see something's been eating them a little bit, but it's at that time of year where that just happens. You can also pick these with your fingers, but I find them the rose is pretty tough to pick. So I just come through and give them a good prune and clean them up, and pick up any dead rose things, any dead rose heads that you cut off, just to keep things are clean. So now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to go around and do the petunias and stuff, and we'll get this bed all cleaned up. For pruning the geraniums, you want to go right down here as far as you can in the stem and take them out. These geraniums have been great here. I think I'll plant more here next year. They've done really well and they really liked it. Hold on, you guys, I gotta stop. Mosquitoes are brutal. And I'm just gonna go in here and cut this petunia back a bit, because it's going where it shouldn't. There we go, that's better. I want to be able to see her hands. And I cut off anything that's starting to finish, because otherwise I'm back in a day and I'm cutting stuff off again. So it's going to seem brutal to you guys how much I cut off, but you could also take your hands and go down and in and take your fingers and snap them off. So if they have any blooms on top here that are dead, I trim them back. So this plant's gonna seem pretty darn clean when all is said and done. So get right down in there. There. And that's all there is to it. So I'll go and do all the rest of the geraniums and the petunias, and then we'll head on to do more roses and the salvia. And as you go through and trim your roses and stuff, just inspect your plants. Make sure there's no diseases and everything looks nice and healthy. The leaves are green. If you do see black spot, probably best to treat it. They'll do better if you do, and try to prevent it from spreading. That's the one thing I run into when I buy flowers at this time of year, is you have to watch, well, not flowers, I should say roses. You have to watch for black spot, because if the rose is really diseased with black spot, chances of it making through the winter aren't as good. So you want to make sure when you're buying any sort of roses, whether they're miniatures or anything else, that they aren't full of black spot. The one greenhouse I was at, and I won't name any sources or anything like that, all the roses had black spots. So I went there looking for a specific thing. I found one rose that didn't have the black spot, bought that one, and didn't buy any more just because of them having so much of it. And I knew it was going to be a nightmare to try to save them and get rid of that black spot. And a lot of pruning too, because sometimes pruning is the best way to deal with black spot, you guys. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind, which I've said before in other videos. So here's the salvia, and I'm just cutting the buds off. I mean, these are really short plants, so I mean, you don't have to go too hard on it. Just pulling weeds and stuff out as you go along. Just moving my pail and checking to see what needs pruned here in the roses and what doesn't. I could come back through the salvia and cut it back, especially if they're leaning. I'll take more off. You can see, no, they're not leaning so bad. I mean, on the shorter salvias, I mean, that seems fairly drastic. So you see this rose has blooms on it. This one has a couple, oops, lost control of my pruners. They're spent, so we're just gonna take them off. Otherwise, I'm coming back tomorrow and taking them off. Remove anything that maybe needs to be pruned back. Sometimes I get a bud too, which I just did, but that's okay. It'll help the plant grow, and that looks a lot cleaner. And that's just how I'm going to go around and clean this up. This one in particular, and take her back here. This is the lavender one. That's fairly new to me. A few leaves that don't look the best, but we'll take them off. Overhead watering will sometimes cause you trouble too, you guys. So if you got drip in, that's awesome. This is just dry. And that's it. That's how you look after the roses. So I'll finish this up, and then I'm just going to go through and talk a little bit more about this and show you how these look after they're cleaned up. Okay, a few tips on growing miniature roses in the winter. I will do a video on it when the time comes. I'll pick up some more roses over the winter and show you how I handle them. But the key thing with roses, they don't like to get dry. So you have them in the small little pots in the house, and those pots dry out. If they dry out, you're going to get yellow leaves, and it's going to shrivel up and die. So you want to keep it moist. You want to put it in the sink and give it a good soaking, and you can feed it once a month. I wouldn't feed it weekly. I'd feed it once a month, because you just want to get through the winter so you can put it out in the yard. So that's one thing. Keep it deadheaded. Now, if you run into a situation where it does get dried out and you get behind on looking after it and it's looking nasty, cut it back. Cut it back by half, cut it back by 3/4. Find those little leaf shoots on the plant and cut it to where a new leaf shoot is coming and hack it back. And that will get it through to the spring. And I have some older videos when I first started my channel where I basically took some of those roses and did that too. And they are out here today in this bed. And it worked really, really well. I saved them, I got them out here, and they're living their best life. So that is something that you can do to save your roses if you end up in a situation. The other thing is too, you guys, if you find miniature roses on sale and they are dying back and you still have warm climate and you can get them on sale, buy them. Save their little lives, because these stores and greenhouses, they die and they just chuck them in the garbage. But if you can catch them before they're totally dead, I hate to save it. See if you can talk to a store manager and like buy them all for a chunk of money if you so are interested in doing miniature roses, and then cut them back hard and put them in your garden, keep them moist and feed them. You can save them. I find it such a shame that these stores, grocery stores and everything, bring all these roses in. They don't get cared for and they die. And you don't get a chance to buy them and maybe save them and get them at a discounted price rather than them going in the garbage. It's a shame, because they really are beautiful and they're a little work of art. Like, they really are. The details that go into those little flowers and how intricate they are. If you look at this one, you look at how intricate that is. They're fragrant. It's a shame to throw them in the garbage, you guys. So that would be something I'd ask anybody who's interested in doing miniature roses, is try to save their little lives if you can, and see if that grocery store or that floral shop or big box will let you buy the ones that are in bad shape. It is worth the effort, because they will reward you. Anyhow, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing another rose video here in the next day or so. You will see that coming on a different type of rose. And this is the time to get stuff planted now that we're into fall, and get them watered in and get them rooted. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, everybody. Bye.